Now I'd like to recognize Congressman Flores from Texas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Stanislaw, thank you for joining us today. I want to give you a quote in answer to the question about having multiple opinions of judges determine how the enforcement is carried out. You said we don't anticipate any issues with that in that regard. I will tell you from a real-world perspective, any time that you don't have the right type of rulemaking, that you will have that instability, if you will, in the real world in terms of the enforcement process. And not only could you have it among the states, you could have it within a state because you've got multiple district judges that will make their own technical opinions. So I urge you to keep that under consideration as you move forward. This gets into the law, if you will, and that is in terms of legacy sites. Walk us through how the EPA believes that it has the authority to regulate legacy sites, and in particular, I'd need the specific reference to RCRA, if that's what you're relying upon to make the rules.
So clearly, we've set forth in the rule that inactive sites at an active power plant and active units at a power plant have the same exact risk. This has coal ash with all of its constituents of coal ash. It has water, and under those conditions, it poses the identical risk of structural failure and impacting communities, leaching into groundwater. So we believe, because of those circumstances, that RCRA provides us the ability and authority and kind of mandate that kind of protection, because identical units, but for it's not actively being used for disposing of coal ash.
Okay. Let's take that to the next step. When you're talking about those particular impoundments, when you propose the application of location restrictions to existing surface impoundments, the EPA acknowledged that these limitations, the location restrictions, would force a majority of these the current impoundments to close. And so do you have an estimate of how many will close, and moving further upstream from those closures, what sort of reliability does that, reliability issues could be in our grid?
Yeah, well, I don't have that estimate. I can get you that information. I believe it's contained in the preamble, but I can get you that information. But just to be clear, the final rule provides location requirements, but it does not begin with closure. It begins with examining all these location criteria: proximity to wetlands, proximity to groundwater aquifers. Then a utility will have to determine whether they are not in compliance with that. Then they will have to determine, can they put in engineering solutions to provide those kind of protections. So it would not automatically trigger closure. But I can get you that data.
Okay, I think that would be important, because I think in your rule, you acknowledge that it will cause the majority of these to close, and I think that creates an issue in terms of reliability.
I'll look at that. I'm not sure that's correct, but I'll check that and get back to you.
And then, to the extent that an operator grants itself an extension, what do you think the impact will be in terms of citizen lawsuits and the instability, let's just say the instability or the lack of clarity that causes for an operator?
Well, because we've gone out, we visited numerous coal ash impoundments around the country. We've reviewed information from utilities about the different dimensions of impoundments, and because some are going to be more challenging to close than others. So we do put in place in a very specific way those circumstances where they can provide, enable themselves of extension. So we think the rule itself provides that ability to extend where the circumstance justifies that. That would be coupled with, obviously, the utility disclosing those circumstances. But we believe, follow that, there will not be a violation of the federal rule.
Okay, and therefore no citizen litigation would follow then?
Yeah, we don't believe there will be a basis for citizens in that circumstance.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. Chair now recognizes